Now, this training is going to be really, really helpful. It's going to be really, really important. Why? Because we always talk about the same things. We always talk about, exam technique or the content or those general things that we know students need to do to get grades. But we miss out on the big picture. So for those of you who are here now, I have a question for you. And that question is, how many of you think that the number one factor for student success is intelligence? Right? I want you to put in the chat, yes, the number one factor for student success is intelligence, right? Or if you think that's not the number one factor, or there are other factors, just put a no and say what it is. Do not be shy. Do you think the number one factor for student success is intelligence? Well, this is something that many of us know that that's not necessarily the case. And over the last couple of weeks, I have been speaking with many of our students, because one of the things that we do here is we check in with our students, which I love, which is actually feedback one of our students gave to us, and we say, how you doing? You guys have just had tests and mocks and so on and so on. How you getting on? And what I realized is I was speaking with a lot of students who, of course, were doing well because it improved, in grades. And I realized that these are what I call top achievers. So students who are grade 7 and, for them, grade 7 is not even good enough for them. And they want to hit grade 9. So I was speaking to these students, and I started to notice things that they have in common. And we sort of know this, but sometimes something happens that just kind of like stare us bang right in the face. And I thought, this is going to be really helpful for parents. So I actually learned from speaking to these students that there are certain strategies that they apply. I wanted to make sure those strategies go to parents, and I wanted to make sure those strategies go to students who have not yet reached their potential yet. Whether it's a student working at a grade 6 and need that grade 7 to go to a specific college or sixth form, to move ahead and do what they want to do in the future, or is a student at grade 3 and really want to get a grade 5, these strategies are going to be really helpful. So I'm actually just going to jump right in and share my screen with you. We should have this, what top students do differently. Now, before I jump in, I'm just going to share this with you. This is one of our top students this is one of the students actually who finished last summer, who have been following all of these things that I'm going to talk to you about in this training today. And you can see how well he did in his science, in his maths and his English, and all of that. He did that with us. And you can see the message from the dad. So the student is a go-star. You can see the message from the dad really helped boosted her confidence level. Okay, so let's jump in. Top method number 1 is consistent practice. Practice consistently. As I say that, I want you to think, does my child practice consistently? Does my child have a routine for practicing consistently? If not, they need to start with that. So especially in maths, right, but in everything, you've got to regularly work through those problems. One of the stories that I share with my parents, and you may have heard of this story, was when I was at school. So I grew up in Africa, and then I moved to the UK at the start of secondary school. And when I was at school, I said, "Ooh, yes, Nathalie, you're saying hard work and hard and consistent work." And this is going to link in very well with the story I'm going to tell you about now. So when I moved to the UK, I really struggled because there was a different teaching style, and there still is a different teaching style compared to now. So even though I was doing okay over there, when I came here, I just went whoop all the way down. And especially in my maths, I did really bad. I was in the lower set. At the time we had foundation, intermediate, and higher set. Now, thanks to having support, support from my parents, my dad in particular, I did just have this belief that I was going to do great. I was going to do well in maths. So I just worked hard. I just practiced and practiced, even put the work hard aside, I was practicing problems constantly to the point where it was almost like I was the examiner, almost like I knew what was going to be, what the mark scheme was going to say. And eventually, even though I was in the foundation set, I took the intermediate paper and got the highest grade for that, which was a B. And with that, you need like a good 70 or 80%. So that's a story there of the power of working through problems. Not just the hard work is in that, but just constantly working through problems, because it really reinforces that knowledge, solidifies that understanding, and you can see there really improves the speed, right? Especially with something like maths, you need to develop that speed over time. So consistent practice is really, really important. Reduces stress, right? This is what I talked about when I got to the point where it was almost like I was the examiner, or I could tell you what the examiner was going to say. I don't think I was stressed. I don't remember being stressed because I was so confident, right? My confidence was so well boosted, right? So having that consistent practice is really like training for a marathon. You can't just run those miles the day before the race. You need to do regular, short training. Does that make sense, right? To those of you who are here, does that make sense? Type a yes in the chat for me if that makes sense to you, right? So we can already see there's nothing. When I talked about this yesterday, and I said top students are not special. And then that kind of comes out a bit wrong, saying top students are not special. But what I meant was that it's not because they're just highly intelligent or it's in the genes. It's because they're following these strategies. And consistent practice is simple. And by the way, I am going to later on give you something that's going to help your child with consistent practice. So stay with me and I'll share that with you later. So consistent practice is just about saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this at this time. I'm going to be committed. Oh, also, if you missed my training a couple of weeks ago, because that also is going to help with consistent practice, just put a comment below. So that's the one on milestones, because we really talked about that. Just put a comment below, just write down milestones in the comment here below, and I'm going to give you access to that training, because that gave a lot of information, because it's all linked with the whole new year and everything, on how students can be consistent. Next method, going through past paper questions. This one is so simple, so easy. But why students don't do this, I don't understand. As an example, homework, right? So for instance, here, when we give our students homework, they are almost always exam questions, right? And every single time, the students who make the most improvement, whether they're in grade 3 and they move to grade 5, or they're in grade 5 and they move to grade 7, are those students who do their homework every week. Why? Because they are doing past paper questions, and the past paper questions is allowing them to apply the knowledge. Because it's very easy, just like you guys might be here, okay? The third one is reviewing mistakes. So people can do exam paper questions, but they do not check the mark scheme. And if you want to know a bit about mark scheme, I do have another training on that. Type mark scheme below, we'll make sure we send that out to you as well. You've got to check the mark scheme because you've got to see where you are going wrong. You're going to understand, you're going to be able to understand those misconceptions and those errors. And just like the story that I mentioned about me earlier when I was doing maths, it really gives you a clear insight into what the examiner wants from you, right? So once you check the mark scheme and you go, oh, this is what they wanted, then no matter how the examiner twists the questions, because I'm going to be honest with you, the same questions, just twisted in a different way, no matter how they do that, you know how to answer the question, okay? But also, one of the things that we know about learning is that mistakes is an opportunity for learning, right? Some students are scared to make mistakes. Some students in the class don't want to put their hand up and, you know, and say and be wrong. And I always say to them, it is better that you are wrong, because actually for learning, you're going to learn better that way. You're going to remember visually, oh yeah, I said that was the wrong answer, but then when I checked or asked the teacher, this is actually the correct answer. So by reviewing, you're noticing your mistakes, and that is a learning opportunity. Okay, so I think there's a few more methods I'm gonna go with you, so I'm just gonna go a little bit fast. This one, and I do have another two bonus ones, and with one of them I'm gonna give you like a gift, some information that's gonna really help your child, as I said at the start, with that consistency as well. Number 4 is make connections across topics. What does that mean? It means don't just cram, right? Don't just learn this definition, especially science that's massive, right? Or let's just say biology alone. Biology is like, woo, super long, right? Don't just cram, right? Have a good understanding of it and link it with the next thing, right? If you're learning a little bit about DNA, develop that better understanding and link it with the bigger part of DNA, inheritance and genetics. So when you have questions on this, you do not get thrown off. So really making sure you're connecting those dots between topics, because it helps with deeper understanding and it helps application of knowledge. Where do we apply knowledge? Exam questions. So if you're able to do this, it's going to help with exam questions. It's really not just about rote learning. It's really about making sure you're really focused and you're really adept at tackling unfamiliar problems. All right, so before I go in, I've got 2 bonuses for you. Before I go into that, is this something that out of those 4, which one do you think that your child could be focusing on right now to help take them to that next level? What is the one thing that your child is not doing at the moment that they can be doing based on this to help take them to the next level? And also get your child into this group so they're watching these trainings. Make sure to share these trainings with them as well. So we said make connections across topics, review mistakes, check mark schemes, go through past papers, and consistent practice. Which of these would you say your child is not doing at the moment that you think that they can do to help them? Just drop that for me in the chat below. It'll be interesting to see what we've got down. And once we know this as well, this is what we'll be able to focus on with our students to help them, because if quite a few of you are saying the same thing, then we know that, okay, this is what we need to work on with our student. Okay, so this is just giving you a little peek into something we look at school. It's called Bloom's taxonomy. And you can see at the bottom here, it's just things like memory, remember, and so on and so forth. But it's once they start to get to application, to applying, that's when they move ahead. So having a look at those exam questions, making connections across topics is really going to help them get to that next stage. Bonus is creating a study timetable and also sticking to the study timetable. Do not overlook a study timetable. Do not think, oh, it's just something simple, because a study timetable really helps with consistency, right? It also really ensures that you are in the driver's seat. The child is in the driver's seat. This child is in control, because they know, all right, here's my timetable. I'm going to do geography today. I'm going to do physics tomorrow. Or you can break it down even more. I'm going to do this aspect of maths tomorrow. And so once it's done, it's sticked and they're fine, right? Because they've organized themselves, because it's structured and they've organized. If they don't have a timetable, then they just sort of hide in, put in their head somewhere and hoping that everything will be okay. But somebody who has a timetable is in charge and is in control. The other thing about timetable is that it needs to be done in such a way where they're having that balance. It's not just work, but they take breaks as well, as all of that is going to help really minimize that stress. So having a timetable is really like a balanced diet, right? You need that mix of nutrients to stay healthy and perform optimally. So we show our students here exactly how to create a timetable and create a timetable that they would stick to. So no matter what year the child is, whether it's year 7, 8, 9, or for those who are, going to do their exams in a few months, we show them how to do a timetable. It's going to be really, really helpful for them. Okay, so if this is something that you want, this, is something that, we're more than happy to share. So just type timetable below and we will get that sent over to you. And finally, I love this one, is top students utilize resources. There's a lot of information in that slide, so I'll just talk a little bit about it first. So when I shared my story earlier about moving to the UK, like start of year 7, and just really struggling particularly with maths, I wasn't just practicing questions and being consistent. I was getting resources everywhere. And this is something our students don't do these days. Our students just think, well, not all of our students, but many students just think that it's all down to the teacher, right? And what my teacher tells me is enough, but it isn't. When I was back at school, I was even using videos back then. We're talking 20 odd years ago now. So really making the most of every resource. And resources are not just books. Resources are asking your teacher, watching videos. Inside of our program, we have our GCSE Achievers community. Make the most of it. If your child is enrolled with us, like you, Susan, ask Tara to, whenever she's taught, go into that group, post a question, and we will answer the question for her. We would help her with answering the question. So really utilizing resources, like I say, not just relying on teachers or tutor, making use of varied resources, because it presents information in varied ways. When I'm learning something, I always find that just one book or whatever is not enough. I need to look at another one to try and understand, to get a completely different perspective. And that's really going to boost that understanding, really provide that deeper understanding for them, ensuring that they've actually prepared for any curveballs that's thrown in the exams and they can tackle those questions with confidence. So it's a little bit like constructing a building with materials, different materials from different suppliers, rather than just sticking with one thing. All right. So that's it, guys. There is a lot there today, but I wanted to just give you those two bonuses as well, because I think it's going to be really, really, really helpful. And thank you so much for staying with us till the end of the training.